this lesson, we will be factoring trinomial equations. By the end of the lesson, you should be able to factor an equation in the form of x squared plus bx plus c. So when we solve an equation by factoring, this can only be done when we have quadratic trinomials, which means that it has the largest degree of 2. And then we use our zero product property. So we factor it, and then we set each of our factors equal to 0. So our steps, rewrite the equation so that one side equals 0. But you have to start with equals 0. Factor the trinomial. Then set each factor to 0 and solve. It usually has 2 solutions, but it may just have one if it's the same number written twice. Always check your solution by substituting it back into the original equation. So if we're solving this equation, x squared plus 9 equals negative 10x. The first thing I want to do is set it equal to 0. So I'm going to add 10x to both sides. That gets me x squared plus 10x plus 9 equals 0. And then what two numbers multiplied together equal 9 and add together to equal 10? So that would be 9 times 1. So it factors to x plus 9 and x plus 1. Then we set each of those to 0, and we get x is equal to negative 9, and x equals negative 1. Now we're going to check our answer by substituting both of those numbers, negative 1 and negative 9, our solution, negative 9, negative 1, into our original equation. So we start with negative 9 squared plus 10 times negative 9 plus 9 equals 0. So that's 81 minus 90 plus 9 equals 0. So 0 equals 0. So we know negative 9 works. Let's check negative 1. Negative 1 squared plus 10 times negative 1 plus 9 equals 0. So that's 1 minus 10 plus 9 equals 0. So 0 equals 0. So both of those numbers work in that equation. All right, solve the equation. So I need to get this to equal 0. So minus 75 minus x. Here, oops. So that gets us x squared minus 2x minus 80 equals 0. Now what two numbers multiply together to equal negative 80 and add together to equal negative 2? So that would be 8 and 10. So since this is negative, it would have to be negative 10 and positive 8. So x minus 10 and x plus 8. X minus 10 equals 0. So x equals 10. X plus 8 equals 0. So x is equal to negative 8. So my solution is negative 8, 10. All right, solve the equation. First thing I need to do is make it equal to 0. So x squared plus 8x plus 16 equals 0. What two numbers multiply together to equal 16 and add together to equal 8? That would be 4 and 4. So x plus 4 times x plus 4. Set them both to 0. So x equals negative 4. So when we write our solution, we don't need to write the same number twice, so we'll just say negative 4. All right, it's a new client meeting, and everyone has to shake hands with everyone there. If there were a total of 55 handshakes, how many people were there? The total number of handshakes, h, for possible n people can be determined using the following equation. So it's telling us that there are 55 handshakes. So I'm going to put 55 in for h. It's me n squared minus n over 2. So the first thing we don't like about this equation is that there's a fraction. So let's multiply by 2 to get rid of the fraction. Like it says 110 equals n squared minus n. And it has to equal to 0, so I'm going to subtract 110 from both sides. That gets me 0 equals n squared minus n minus 110. So what two numbers multiplied together equal 110 and add together to equal -1? So I know one of the numbers, so the only way I can get that is by those two. One of the numbers has to be negative and one's positive. Since this is negative, the 11 is going to have to be negative. So I set them both to 0. Excuse me, n minus 11 times n plus 10. Sorry, factor it. Now set them to 0. N minus 11 equals 0. So n equals 11. N plus 10 equals 0. So n equals -10. So the number of handshakes cannot be negative. So this is not possible because it's a word problem. So my answer is 11 handshakes. Remember, word problem, look at some word answers. All right, the area of a square is numerically equal to twice its perimeter. So let's write that down. Area equals twice the perimeter. Find the length of the side for the square. So the area of this square is s squared. And the perimeter is 4s because we add up the sides. So then we get s squared equals 8s. Remember, it has to equal 0. So s squared minus 8s equals 0. I'm going to factor out an s. That gets me s minus 8 equals 0. Both of my factors have to be set to 0. So my choice is, the side can either be 0, that's not possible, or 8. So that means that my side is 8. So what property did we use? Zero product property. What's the largest degree of a quadratic trinomial? 2.